There are people who can walk into their homes after a long, profoundly exhausting day in the world and almost immediately begin wiping down the kitchen counters, straightening the cushions, and carefully putting away their shoes. To the outside observer, these individuals seem to possess a magical, endless reserve of physical energy that defies logic. They appear to have mastered adulthood in a way that feels entirely effortless, moving through their evening routines with a quiet, enviable grace while the rest of the world collapses onto the sofa. Not because they actually have more hours in the day, and not because they possess some superior, tireless discipline that the rest of humanity somehow lacks, but simply because their nervous system is intricately wired to require external order to create internal quiet. They have learned, often entirely subconsciously, that a cleared table is not just a piece of furniture, but a physical boundary against the chaos of the outside world. For them, the rhythmic act of folding laundry or wiping a glass surface serves as a bridge between the overstimulating demands of society and the deeply necessary silence of their own private sanctuary. And then there is the rest of us, who experience a very different reality when we finally turn the key in the front door. You know this feeling intimately, even if you have never been able to perfectly articulate it to anyone else. It is that quiet, suffocating anxiety that creeps up the back of your neck when you finally sit down on your couch, desperately trying to relax, but feeling the heavy, invisible weight of a disorganized room pressing firmly against your chest. You look around at the pile of unopened mail on the table, the shoes scattered near the doorway, and the dishes lingering in the sink, and you feel a profound, aching exhaustion that drains the absolute last drops of your daily energy. You sit there, paralyzed by the visual noise of your own sanctuary, feeling the quiet guilt wash over you as you wonder why you simply cannot keep up with the basic demands of adulthood. You might find yourself apologizing constantly when people come over, making self-deprecating jokes about being a naturally messy person, or internalizing the heavy belief that your lack of absolute tidiness is a fundamental flaw in your character. You push yourself to clean in frantic, exhausting bursts, usually driven by the panic of incoming guests or the sheer breaking point of your own frustration. But here is the honest truth. The deep fatigue you feel in a cluttered room is not laziness, it is not apathy, and it is certainly not a moral failing that you need to be ashamed of. To understand what is truly happening when you look at a messy room, we have to look closely at the invisible, relentless machinery of your brain. In the realms of environmental psychology and neuroscience, there is a powerful concept known as cognitive load, which dictates how our brains interact with the physical spaces we inhabit. Your brain is not a passive observer of your environment. It is an active, continuous processing engine that is constantly scanning your surroundings for safety, predictability, and completion. Physical clutter in your home actively competes for your attention, even when you are actively trying to ignore it and look the other way. Every single out-of-place item, every stack of papers, every piece of laundry draped over a chair is registered by your visual cortex as unfinished business. This is where most people get it wrong. They assume that ignoring a mess means it is no longer affecting them, but your highly sensitive nervous system is still processing every single piece of data in the background. Think of your brain's processing power like the internal memory, or RAM, of a highly advanced computer system. When you live in a disorganized space, it is the exact equivalent of having 50 different internet tabs open at the same time, with videos auto-playing in the background and notifications constantly pinging. Your brain is that computer, and it is burning through an astonishing amount of cognitive energy just to filter out the visual noise so you can focus on reading a book or watching a movie. If we go one layer deeper, this constant visual processing directly triggers a biological stress response within your body. Research has shown that individuals who describe their homes as cluttered or full of unfinished projects actually produce higher baseline levels of cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone, throughout the entire day. When your environment is chaotic, your brain interprets that physical unpredictability as a subtle, persistent threat to your safety, keeping your sympathetic nervous system in a state of low-level, continuous alert. For a highly sensitive, introverted mind that already absorbs too much information from the outside world, coming home to a chaotic environment means the nervous system never actually gets the signal that it is safe to power down. Those individuals who clean their homes consistently are not simply performing chores, they are engaging in a highly effective, deeply necessary psychological practice. In clinical psychology, this is known as behavioral activation, the deliberate use of physical action to interrupt a cycle of emotional paralysis. It is not a productivity hack, it is therapy. They are using the physical, rhythmic act of restoring order to their physical space to forcefully restore order to their internal emotional landscape. If this sounds like the explanation you have been searching for your entire life, welcome to the Quiet Psychology Club, a place where we do not judge you for the state of your living room, because we know that your mess is often just a reflection of an overwhelmed mind trying its best to survive. A place where your deep sensitivity is understood, validated, and fiercely protected from a world that constantly demands more than you can comfortably give. I want to share something very real with you, a deeply personal moment that entirely shifted my perspective on this cycle of chaos and control. I remember standing in the middle of my small downtown apartment during a particularly turbulent, emotionally devastating year of my life. My work was chaotic, my personal relationships felt fractured, and everything outside my front door felt dangerously out of my control and overwhelming. I was standing in the kitchen, staring blankly at a counter covered in unwashed coffee mugs, scattered mail, and random items that had slowly migrated from every other room in the house. The air in the apartment felt impossibly thick, and the walls literally felt like they were slowly closing in on me, suffocating the last remaining bits of oxygen in the room. My chest was incredibly tight, my breathing was shallow, and the sheer visual noise of the mess made me feel like I was physically trapped inside my own failure. And then, an incredibly clear, quiet thought cut through the dense fog of my anxiety. I cannot control the world outside, but I can control this single square meter of space right in front of me. I grabbed a garbage bag, filled a bowl with warm, soapy water, and simply began to wipe down the surface of the counter, focusing entirely on the tactile sensation of the cloth against the wood. The moment the counter was clear, smooth, and smelling of citrus, I felt a physical release in my shoulders so profound that it almost brought me to tears. It was a tangible, immediate shift in my nervous system, a biological sigh of relief that proved I still had agency, that I could still create safety for myself. And then comes the part that changes everything. You have likely spent years beating yourself up for not having a perfectly curated, minimalist home, believing that you are uniquely broken because you let things pile up when life gets heavy. You have watched pristine morning routines on the internet and felt a deep, crushing wave of inadequacy, thinking that if you just bought the right organizers or tried a little harder, you could finally fix yourself. You believed that your inability to maintain a spotless house was a reflection of your worth as a human being, a sign that you were fundamentally lazy or permanently disorganized. And this is what no one ever taught you about your own mind. When you eventually find the strength to clear your desk, to make your bed, or to finally wash that towering pile of dishes, you are not just checking items off a tedious to-do list. It is not a sign of weakness, laziness, or moral failure. It is a sign of a deeply intelligent mind that has learned to speak the language of its own nervous system. You possess a mind that deeply understands the intricate connection between the spaces you inhabit and the peace you are able to cultivate within your soul. You have a nervous system that responds beautifully to harmony, and when you clean, you are actively writing a love letter to your future self, ensuring they have a safe place to land. We need to stop using harsh, clinical words like rigidity, perfectionism, or failure to describe the very natural human struggle for a peaceful environment. You are not being rigidly controlling. You are engaging in intentional, grounding regulation of your internal state. You are not failing when things get messy. You are simply experiencing the heavy cost of living in an overstimulating world, and your body is asking for grace. You are building a safe, protective fortress for your mind, actively deciding that your immediate physical reality will be a source of comfort rather than a source of distress. So tonight, if you are sitting in a room that feels a little too loud, visually overwhelming, or chaotic, I want you to give yourself permission to release the heavy guilt you have been carrying. Do not look at the entire room. Just choose one small, manageable surface, clear it off, and wipe it down with slow, intentional movements. Reclaim that one small piece of your world. Let the visual quiet wash over your tired eyes and allow your nervous system to finally exhale. You have earned your peace, your physical space is sacred, and your ordered sanctuary is a truly beautiful place to heal.